Hello, everyone. My name is David Sloan. This is going to be a short video about writing content learning goals and ELD learning goals. And I'm going to show you a couple references in the student portal. You go into School of Education and then the clinical practice information. There's a section where all of the handbooks are. And in the student teaching handbook, in Appendix C, is some information about writing these learning goals. This is probably the same examples you've seen because the similar information is used in your different assignments throughout the program in different courses where you taking standards and writing content learning goals, writing ELD learning goals for them. So these are the same things you've probably seen in those courses, but might be easier to go into the handbook rather than going back into those courses to find this information. So Student Teaching Handbook, Appendix C, there's a formula for how to write a content learning goal. By the end of the period, by the end of 20 minutes, whatever your grade level is that you're working with, students will be able to insert your Bloom's taxonomy higher order verb here as measured by this thing that they're going to be completing. All right, so it's a pretty simple formula. You want it to be based off of higher order thinking for your learning goal. You don't need to have that for the ELD goal because that's focused on language. But for the content, it does need to be a higher order verb that you are inserting in there. And so if you Google Bloom's taxonomy verbs, you will get a variety of charts. This one is a little streamlined, but they usually have 6 columns to them. This one is just a little more straightforward, doesn't have a bunch of different colors and levels to them. Generally, the 3 right-hand columns are your higher order verbs. The left-hand columns are your lower order verbs. So if they are just defining something, that's going to be a lower order verb. If they're just tabulating, they're just solving a math problem, those are lower order verbs that are not going to get you there, right? You want to be incorporating these higher order verbs, but there are a lot of them. Some are better than others. For example, I can see explain over here as a higher order verb somewhere. Right here is explain. It's in the right-hand 3 columns. Must be a higher order verb. Oh, wait, but it's over here as a lower order verb. Well, it depends on the depth of the explanation. The explanation is more kind of like a definition of what it is. Over here, level 1. Yeah, it's going to be a lower order verb. If they're going into more detail with more information, then you're going to be moving it over to higher order. Since it could be up to interpretation more so than some of the others, I probably wouldn't use that one when there are so many other good verbs to choose from. It doesn't have to be a complex, magical thing. In one of the first years of the TPA, the CTC released a sample video or submission from the Cal TPA. And I think it was a 2nd or 3rd grade sample, and the person was reading to their class Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And she asked them, if you lived in that town, what food would you want it to rain, or what food would you not want it to rain, and why? When she added the and why to it, then they had to justify, they had to support, they had to defend their answer. That and why moves it over to higher order thinking because they're starting to do these other verbs. So it doesn't have to be super fancy, super complex. It's just taking it to that next step. So if you're solving, a division problem, work it backwards, justify your answer with the multiplication. Doing a subtraction, work it backwards, do it with addition. Then you are defending your answer, supporting your answer, justifying your answer. All right. So you want to make sure that you are including that Bloom's taxonomy verb here, like you see in this formula. There are a couple of examples here. By the end of the lesson, so there's a time frame, students will be able to write an essay. So that's something that they are creating, they're generating this information. And in there, they are explaining the relationship between so write is the actual verb, but within that, they're explaining the relationship between the War of 1812 and the Westward Expansion as measured by the assignment rubric. Or at the end of the lesson, students will be able to formulate a linear equation based on the graphic representation, support their response by writing an explanation in their math journals. In the CalTPA, because you will be required to do this as well, and they give you some examples here about how to write a content-specific learning goal. Standards should be cited from the appropriate grade level, California Content Standards or Framework. Learning goal should be a specific goal for this lesson based on those standards. So here's a example, grade 8 reading literature. Cite the textual evidence that most strongly supports an analysis of what the text says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from the text. Kind of the way it's written, cites the verb. So we can argue with that, because if you're just citing, is not necessarily the strongest word, but what they're getting at is evidence that supports an analysis. Those are your higher order verbs over there. I'm sorry, that was pulling from the standard. Learning goals. Students, so that's why it was not written that way. My apologies. Students will participate, again, that's where I was going with, not the strongest verb here, in structured discussions about the theme of the text, will be able to cite specific evidence from the text to support their opinions. So, kind of confusing because, again, we have multiple verbs here, but we do get to the part about support their opinions, justify, defend their opinions, right? Just participating, not going to get you there. Citing, not really going to get you there. But supporting their opinions, yes, that will get you there. They have other examples for the learning goal that is also very similar. Does not need to include the higher order thinking, like I mentioned. So here we have the standard, the first one that applies to all grade levels, TK through 12, exchanging information and ideas with others through oral collaborative discussions on a range of social and academic topics. So that one, all the other ELD standards experience a little bit of modification as they go from grade level to grade level. This one remains the same all the way through. So it's a good one for an example. A sample learning goal for 8th grade. Students will be able to engage in a discussion with their peers about the theme of a text by stating their own opinions and responding to the contributions of others. All right. Use the formulas that are provided. You have the examples from the CalTPA. You have the examples from the Student Teaching Handbook, which aligns with what you've seen in lesson plan assignments throughout the credential program. You have the Bloom's Taxonomy verb charts. Use those. Once you get used to using that formula, insert that higher order verb in there, becomes second nature, very easy to do. Yes, it's a learning curve in the beginning. Once you start doing it and you're writing, learning goals for every lesson, maybe a couple different learning goals for each lesson, you'll get very skilled at it, very practiced, and it will become second nature to you.